Ave cohort, hello, welcome. It is Saturday morning, which means it is time to get our educational hats on, and we're going to do some Pilum Teaches DCS, focusing again on the F-16C Fighting Falcon, and we're going to be working with a couple of modes today, some DTOS, HMCS, and playing around with some of the smart weapons, which should be a lot of fun. And of course, starting out with our signature sip of coffee. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the jet, or at least around the jet, and we'll talk about some of what we're carrying here on our initial loadout. Let's make sure everything loads up here properly. Of course, it would help if I'm not on TAC view, but on the actual game capture, so let's just change that real quick. Oop. There we go. Alright, so we've got our F-16 here. Got some weapons on her today. As usual, we're here at the NTTR, kind of parading around Nellis a little bit. And for starters, we're going to be using the joint standoff weapon, the JSOW. The F-16 can only carry one variant of these, and it's the cluster version, as compared to the unitary broach one that's available on the Hornet. But we have other weapons that can deal with that, namely the penetrator JDAMs and things of that nature. For the moment, we're also carrying a couple of GBU-10s on those inboard pylons, which should be a lot of fun. But we are equipped with the helmet-mounted queuing system, and we're going to put that a little bit to work. Good morning, Chief. We've got our usual coffee today. This time it's like a brown sugar one. It's kind of nice. At this point, we've already started the jet. We've aligned our helmet. We've made sure our data link is up and ready to rock and roll. So with that, all that's left to do is to go ahead and configure a waypoint for our usual and signature target area against our old adversaries, the truck park. So let's just go ahead and make ourselves our first steer point. Remember, I'm actually on Nellis today, so that's going to be in the Western Hemisphere and not in Easting like it tends to be for most of the other places folks fly. And we're just going to go and take off and get right to it. So while we're taxing up and we are doing our thing here, the HMCS, the helmet-mounted queuing system, is a system on the aircraft that lets you use the helmet to queue sensors, look for stuff. Very powerful tool for any of the missions available for the F-16 and some of the other aircraft that have it, like the A-10C2 and the F-18. And to a lesser extent, the MiG-29, Su-27, Ka-50, that kind of thing. And the Apache, obviously. Theirs is all named a little different depending on what they're doing, but they all basically work the same in that you can use your helmet and your eyes to designate sensors and systems for the aircraft to attack. We're a little heavy, but we are up. And while the aircraft goes ahead and flies itself there for us, as we pass over the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, We're also going to talk about some other modes that we're going to be using today. One of the ones that we're going to be using is called DTOS, which does not stand for dive toss in the F-16. It is actually the direct target optical system, in which that we can use our sensors to point at something and go, I want to kill that. I do want to drop more than just the JSOWs off the jet today, so we'll be making a landing probably at Creech to go ahead and rearm. But we are going to start with the glide weapons there. We're also going to talk about the data link and how to send targets and information to the rest of a flight. Even though I don't have other aircraft up with me to go ahead and send and receive that information, but we will talk through what it is. And forgive me one moment here, I'm just going to quickly open a window while we are cruising out to our target area. A little warm in the office here today. Alright, let's get settled back in. Alright, so our adversaries here, understandably. Truck parks. We got a bunch of them here. And we are using the JSOW. Now, the advantages that the JSOW has, and are important to keep in mind, is it has a phenomenal range. Basically, it is a combination of your initial airspeed and your release altitude when you send it. And between those things, it will be able to reach out almost as far as 50 nautical miles, sometimes even further. Now, the disadvantage to it is that it is an unpowered weapon, so its distance and its ability to go places and do things is subject, again, to how high you were when you let it go and how fast you were going when you sent it. But and especially the cluster variant, it's useful against things like SAM sites, truck parks. More or less anything up to an IFV can be fairly reliably damaged, if not destroyed, by JSOW. Disadvantages also include the fact that the weapon basically functions like a spicy teld, in that SAM systems can track them. Other aircraft have the ability to track them with their onboard radars as well, if their radars are sensitive enough. And if they can track them, they can shoot them. And if they can intercept them before they get to their target, well, you have the advantage at least of having made the enemy waste some missiles to kill them. So while there are 4 carried on board the jet, generally speaking, you're going to be launching at least a pair of them at your target to try and ensure that at least one gets through. But as you can see, we are still 24 miles away from the target, and even at a humble 18,000 feet at our current airspeed, we are well within range of the actual target area. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put the plane in hand. We're going to climb up a bit. Just like all the other smart weapons, these are only available on this one pylon. The third pylon inboard from the outer tip of the wing. It's where all smart weapons go. Those are the only ones that are wired for it. But we can see our friends right about here. So we're just going to find a spot that looks nice. We're going to go TMS up long. And at this point, the JSOW is ready to do its work. It says that it's in parameters. And it could make that turn, but remember, it's going to basically sprinkle its submunitions there more or less in a straight line. So I do kind of want to get to a point where we're a little more lined up. I think I'm actually going to update this point about here. See, we got our waypoint out there. We can look at it with the helmet mounted queuing system. It's going to be important here in a little bit. And we're just about lined up with how I want to be. Point ourselves here at the target. And oop. Big, there goes one. Slide this over here to the other side. TMS up long. And send the second one. They sprout little wings that help them glide and do their thing. And once they have been sent on their merry way, they are on their own. They can make some fairly sharp turns, so you can dispense these flying in a separate direction, which might let you get a little closer to a SAM site if you're looking to try and kill him. The most common targets that I would throw something like this at are the wider area targets, like the SAM systems, like an SA2 or an SA3 type establishment, or a large, multi-cluster sort of SAM would be a perfect place to go ahead and send these. Once you've released them, they are on their own. They will attempt to go and burst. More or less just like that. So with the two of them, we obviously didn't get all of the targets, despite aiming just about here and just about here on either side of the center row of trucks. And that's kind of just the bad nature of cluster munitions and DCS as it is. But for the purposes of Let's Pretend, we're going to go ahead and use our new helmet-mounted queuing system. I say new, it's been in the game for a while. And pretend as though we're going to try and get other members of our flight to be able to identify and attack a target that we have located. So I'm out here, I'm looking out my window. I'm going, okay, there's something else like right here. Yeah, alright, let's go ahead and slew my sensor over to it. Because I can't really tell what it is up here with my eyeball. We are a little far away and distant. But we can Get close to the target area and go, okay, cool, wow, that's a whole new cluster of vehicles there, and I've got to get Trigger in on this to kill it. How can we go about telling Trigger where this is? Well, we could talk him on, give him some reference points, hope he's looking at the same thing that we describe. But in the F-16, we can do some transmission via the data link and really just put his eyes on top of it where it would need to go. We're going to do that by first creating a mark point. So we're going to hit 7 on the ICP. We're going to make sure that this is in TGP. You can change this with dauber right for sequence, and you can roll it through using the radar as a point, overfly as a point, the HUD as a point, or the TGP as a point. The mark points begin at waypoint 25. And we just look at our target with the pod selected, since that's the soy that I want to use. And we hit TMS up, and now we see that lat long and elevation is in the system. All right, great. We're going to use M cell, which is mark point select, and that is now the steer point that I'm currently using. I'm going to pause here for a minute so that we can look at our controls. The one that we're really concerned about here is the transmit switch, IFF inboard, or IFF in. Because if I switch over to my HSD here, we can see here in this top right hand corner where we have XMIT TNDL. If I hold that inboard switch here, it lights up in white, which tells me that we have transmitted information to the rest of our flight. Now here's where I say we got to talk about things rather than have somebody send it to us, because I don't have somebody else in the server with me at the moment. Mostly because it's single player, since you can see that I'm pausing things. But what it would do is they would hit their inboard switch, and it would come up, and you would hear Betty say data, and it would display data received, and it would list a mark point starting at waypoint 500. So at that point, I would just come into the system and look at waypoint 500. Steer point, type in 500, enter. And if I had information in 500 or 501 or whatever, it will show me what I received on the data link. Mark points begin at waypoint 25. It's kind of an idiosyncrasy there of the jet. So it is important from the mission builder standpoint that we don't place a whole lot of things. Sure, I'm not about to encroach on the zone. All right, good. We don't place a whole lot of things on steer points and flight points and everything for the aircraft that exceed 25 waypoints, or we start encroaching on that space that these aircraft are going to use in order to generate attack points and things like that for each other. But at this point, we could call Trigger onto this target. He's looking at it. He says, okay, cool, I see I've got these various weapons and things here. And we're going to go ahead and launch a JSOW at that and see how that one does. And we got one here. Deploys its wings. It's leaning into the turn. The joint standoff weapon does exactly what it says on the tin, as advertised. It will allow you some significant standoff with which to continue engaging ground targets. But again, the Air Force only uses the cluster munition version of it. So the suitability of that weapon for, I want to go ahead and get in here and kill, XYZ hardened structure, you're not going to be able to really do that with these particular weapons. For that, we're going to need some other smart weapons, which will be going down to get here soon. Watching our JSOWs go in and do their thing. See how they do on top of those two targets as individual systems. Here's the first one. Yep, so as far as target saturation goes, if you actually wanted to kill, like, all of the vehicles in this point, I would probably have used all 4 to make sure it was done. You know, here I probably could have gotten away with 2. Those are all really nice clustered together. That one I could probably gotten away with 2. Those are all really close together. The chief advantage of that system is the ability for you to stand way, way off and not get hurt. Okay. I'm going to kind of go ahead and do a pseudo DTOS thing here with the laser guided bombs, because they don't have a vis mode, which DTOS kind of needs for its acquisition. So we'll grab some other JDAMs and use it for that. But we can kind of mimic that in the CCRP mode here on the jet. And the first way we do that is to go ahead and go into our mark points. Go ahead, dauber. It was already on HUD, so that's fine. So the HUD is our soy. And we're going to TMS up long so that it's using our sensor. And you can see we kind of got a little cross there. And go, you know, I really need this attacked. We'll put that there. Trying to level out here a little bit. You see we're kind of in a vis mode. And we can refine that point a little bit since we've hit TMS up already. And now we have mark point 27. And that is already set up and ready to roll. So at that point we could transmit that information to the flight, and we've just used our helmet to go, I want this to die. And if I do DMS down, since I've already got a laser weapon up, it is already set up in CCRP mode for us to go fly over that target that we've created and drop a weapon. So it's a way that we can kind of use the DTOS mode with dumb bombs, or dumber bombs, I should say, because I'm using a laser-guided weapon here, which is a little smarter than the average bear, but not by a whole lot. But that way, if you needed to go ahead and get in here and try and attack something with Mark 82s that you could see, like, you know, hey, there's a SAM site, and it just shot at somebody. Let me go ahead and get set up to kill said SAM site, but, you know, you don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of trying to slide your pod over there to look at it, because you don't have that kind of time, because there's people that are getting killed. You know, that sort of scenario. You can use that helmet-mounted sight to mark a point and either pass that off to the rest of the flight to kill, it's a good impact, or engage it yourself if you've only got something like slicks or high drags or something on board, because it will give you the information to come in and run in on it yourself. Let's go ahead and set back up for wide mode. We'll drop the last GPU 10 so that we're even on both wings. Then we'll land at Creech Air Force Base, we'll pick up some more JDAMs, and we'll use DTOS mode. Holding down that front trigger so that the laser is firing. Right, he's going to yell at me for a minute because we are light enough now that we can go Category 1. "2,000 pounds of freedom" are going to go finish off these targets. And terminate. Alright, let's go and get set up for Creech Air Force Base. Our attack and transmit receive. 87 airfare, or 87 X-ray. Try that again. Let's go ahead and plow some snow here with our pod.
Altitude.
Okay. And we'll roll into the break. Got our boards out, 3 down and locked. A little slow. especially with that last turn we got left to come up. And here we go, turning in for final. Picked up a handful of knots, a little over 200 indicated. We will lose most of that here on our turnaround. And bada bing. There's AOA. Coming down right. Just about in the middle of that tire mark zone. Gentle contact with the ground. Keeping the nose up. Nose is falling naturally. Full brake pressure, full aft stick. A little bit of that aero braking and using the control surfaces of the aircraft as some added speed brakes. Since we're well under 100 knots and under control, we'll go and turn on that nose wheel steering. And cross the active as we make it back down to Creech Air Force Base. Come down here, we'll rearm by the tower. They'll love that. Alright, let's go and set our parking brake here. We'll get ourselves some new goodies. So in our smart pylons, we're going to go ahead and take up. Let's do something big. GBU 31. And on our inboard pylons, why not? We'll do some rockets.
Request refueling. Request rearming.
All right, so for our next trick, we're going to play with our old adversary. This particular objective zone is defended by this SA-8. Defended by some Shokas and some Sparkas and some S-60 and KS-19 guns directed by Fire Can. Be a good time. And obviously our highest threat system that we got down there is this SA-8, so we're going to try and deal with him first. And then we'll try and use the DTOS mode. See if we can't get one of these other two groups that are a little visually distinct, so we should be able to see that, move our helmet over the top of it, and really get that designated and marked up. We're not carrying any harms, but honestly, we really shouldn't need them. It would be super easy mode to kill an SA-8 with a harm. But to be fair, for the SA-8 at least, you could probably kill that with guns or rockets or bombs or really just about anything. Probably send it a strongly worded email and get it to blow up.
Rearming complete.
Alright, so we're carrying on our smart weapon pylons, the 2,000-pound class JDAM. The F-15 can carry up to 7 of those. Unfortunately, in the F-16, we're limited to 2. But there's also another class of them that has a heavy penetrator on them, which gives them similar penetrating power to like the GBU-24. So, a lot of options. A lot of options with the JDAM. Stands for Joint Direct Attack Munition. And we got some rocket pods there on the inside, inner wing pylon, which will be fun for fun's sake. So our switch is set to category 3. We are going to go ahead and set up and waypoint. And we'll just put it over here for now. Up steer point 2. Set that up. And I've said it many times on streams, and many more times live on person with people. But the ability now to just left alt and left click on the map and generate sets of coordinates is such an important quality of life feature for this game. Alright, so we have our steer point set. Let's go make some havoc. Since it is a smart weapon, we do need to go ahead and turn that on. And the JDAM, much like a lot of smart weapons, can operate in both a pre-planned, as indicated by this pre, or a visual mode for designation. Go ahead and start warming up our pod again. One of the advantages of DTOS mode, especially for your dumb bombs, because the smart weapons, understandably, I don't have a release mode for those. It's DTOS. But one of the things that's important with that is that you can look at a spot, put your little bug over the top of it and mark it. And unlike using something like the pod or something like that, it's not going to get confused if you dip behind terrain and go, okay, I can't see it anymore. So you can use that to, find something, get ready to kill it, do everything you need to do to make sure that the aim point is nice and refined. And then dive down low, pop up, and, drop your weapons on it in a kind of in-between step to CCRP and CCIP bomb modes. We're a little heavy, but we really don't need all this runway space. Should be fine to turn around here. Continue our adventure. Gears coming up. Wake up the pod. So the first one of these JDAMs we're going to drop it pre-planned. More or less right on top of our waypoint. And the second one, we'll use the visual mode and try and mark it with the helmet and throw it from there. So while we're cruising up and being on our merry way here, advantages and disadvantages with JDAM. The advantages are you can mark that target in a variety of different ways. You can use a GPS coordinates, set of waypoints, a mark point from somebody else. Now, any number of means and modes, you can basically say, I want you to hit this geo-aligned position on Earth, and the weapon will do that. It will. You could set that up way in. You could set it up on the ground before you even take off as a pre-programmed strike. So that all you're doing is trying to put your jet in parameters where that bomb is going to be able to do the magic. And it will go. Especially something like the F-15 where you can queue up multiple bombs simultaneously and give them all different geo-coordinates. You can really make things happen by flying into one set of parameters where all of your targets are within parameters and let multiple bombs off the jet to attack separate targets. In the F-16, we accomplished that by using mark points. So you go through and be like, all right, I want this to die, I want that to die, I want this to die, I want that to die, in case you're using the 500-pound class, which is far more common. Coming up here with just 2 weapons on this jet is not a whole lot of staying power, so it's kind of in and out for whatever it is you're getting in to do. But you can use the mark point system to generate your steer points, and then come back into the system and go, where do I need these JDAMs to go? And it's literally just a matter of, I'm not going to do it now because if I do that, I'm going to yank the aircraft way off course, but you just set yourself to steer point 26, 26, pickle, 27, pickle, 28, pickle, 29, pickle, and you can get four bombs off the jet real quick and then get out of town. The bomb will steer itself. So if you need to just pop up and you're not, flying a perfect route, for iron bombs, which rely on the pilot's precision to make that work, JDAM will make corrections for that. And as long as it feels it's in the zone, which is that wide bracket there on the right-hand portion of the HUD, Pickle, it will do everything in its power to try and attack that target. Disadvantages with the system: not as useful for very fast engagements. It's one thing if you're in a zone like this and you're kind of looking at the area and can, broadly speaking, know where it is you want to go. And, kind of where things are, so you can kind of take the time to get a sensor on target and employ it. But for something that is like fast cast type work, where speed and everything else is of the essence, your dumb bombs are far more useful for that. Coming up with Mark 82s is far and away more useful. Yeah, you can do something crazy like, I'm going to mark this target and get it all set up and fly this real, super low snake route and then just pop up here and let the bomb go and it'll correct itself and do it. Yeah, really good. That's possible. But you're setting that up in advance rather than, trying to doing it based on, I'm in CCIP mode, the bomb's going to hit here and I'm just going to put Pipper on target and let him fly. Okay, so we have just used the pre-plan mode by just setting up a waypoint and having done nothing else for designation, and that JDAM went right where we wanted it to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this in visual mode. And mark ourselves a new target. And while we are doing this with a JDAM, this is essentially how DTOS will work for other systems that use DTOS instead. So first step is we want to make the HUD the soy. We're going to do DMS, Delta Mike Sierra up, and then Tango Mike Sierra up long to make the pod, or the helmet rather, the sensor that we want to use. I'm going to come in here, we're going to find something that we want to kill, like the Sparkas. Actually, the Shokas. Fly as steady as I can. Boop. And we are already largely in parameters and in the zone. Let's fly towards our target. Pickle. Kind of want to fly due east. And the big problem that we had here with this is we did not refine our aim point. So it did not go where we needed it to go. Should always take an extra step to refine it because your helmet may not be quite lined up with where it needs to go. But you can get things close. Where possible, try and use more than one sensor. So we'll just come in here real quick and do that again in terms of marking the target. And then we'll refine that point a little bit. Did, however, go very close to where we needed it to go. So if you're in a pinch and you can really kind of aim that square box where it needs to go, you might be able to get it close enough to deal damage to your target, if not outright destroy it. And that's useful for things like the CBU 105, but the 105, you definitely want to make sure that you refine your point or you're going to consistently miss. Alright, so let's go ahead and get back in here and find our friends. Okay, HUD is soy. And there we go. You can see where that point is really kind of drifting. That's why we need to refine that a little bit. And a little bit head down looking in the pod. Shokas unfortunately haven't moved, so they're not very warm, making them a little harder to spot. But not impossible. Alright, so in visual mode, go ahead and answer the Master Nairo's, sorry, I horribly butchered that name, question there. We're in visual mode with the weapon. I don't have any more on board, but that's okay. And we're going to use DMS up to make the HUD the soy, as indicated by the little dot or star right there in that top left-hand corner. And then TMS up long. Actually, I need to reset the pod there real quick. So yeah, TMS up long to move that to the helmet sight. And now we have that square box around our helmet. And then just a quick tap. And now the pod is looking kind of where I need it to. Matter of refinement. Make it the soy now. Any of the smart weapons that have a visual mode will work that way. For some of the dumb weapons, you have to kind of coax it and tease it a little bit and use a different sort of mode. Which I'm carrying rockets, so I'm not going to be able to use that one, but let's go ahead and spray some rockets at this. We'll grab some other bombs, and we'll use that in conjunction with like DTOS. Set up a mark point in the same sort of fashion. All right, Mr. Shulkas. Take that. Oh, it's going to land a little short. That one won't. That's really kind of the big thing with it, especially with the helmet-mounted queuing system, is if you're head down in the sensors, you're missing the fight. Like, if I was providing Overwatch to somebody else and I'm head down in the sensor trying to look at this point, I'm going to miss so much. But if I'm actually down here, you know, looking, zooming in and out, that kind of deal, using the helmet, you know, you can see more of what's going on. You can pay attention for tracers, help keep your friends safe. And, you know, employ your weapons a little more rapidly on some of these targets. Let's go and try and shoot at this Shulka some more, empty out our rocket pods. We'll go back to Creech, grab some bombs, and come on back. All right. Head to our home away from home, grab some bombs, and get back to it. Bring a mixture of GBU-38s on those outer pylons and like Mark 82s on the inners. Hey, appreciate the follow. Thank you. Teaching is the name of the game here on Saturday morning. Yeah, setting up for a mark point, which will really let you kind of maneuver your sensors around and everything else really hard. That's going to be what we do next. So if you can hang on for a few minutes before bouncing out to another stream somewhere, we'll cover that. Give it a little more juice here because we got all kinds of gas. We'll just get home quickly. So we could turn around and do the thing. Appreciate hearing that. Okay, speed brakes out. Rather than doing the overhead brake, we've got plenty of room here for it, so I'm just gonna cruise on in for home. We'll just do straight in, rearm real quick, and come back up. The biggest thing using the helmet-mounted sight that I've found from my own experience is that even if you have really dialed that thing in and aligned it properly, whole 9 yards, it can be a little off if you rely on it alone as your sensor to try and figure out where things are. So it's always good to have a double check, usually with a TGP pod, where you can get close enough with the helmet to figure out what it is you need to see. And then refine that aim point with the pod. Coming in a little shallow. And a little quick. Thank you, Polish Thunder 2. Appreciate it. All right, we'll turn nose wheel steering on. Those folks that are having issues trying to get the F-16 back on the ground or have a habit of rolling the aircraft after coming in, make sure you leave the nose wheel steering off until you're well under 100 knots. Now, you really have rudder authority that is pretty strong all the way down to about 70 or 80 knots. So if you need to, wiggle about on the runway a little bit, you can. I know I'm not following any taxi lines here. I'm just trying to get set back up so we can get stuff and go back up and show this off. All right, let's get some toys. Top off the gas a little bit. I'm going to put the GBU-38s there on the outers. And Mark 82s on the inners.
Request refueling.
Okay, so we were talking a little bit about some of the limitations of the JDAM system earlier, which included things like, you really have to see a target and designate one, which can be a little bit more of a process where if you need to do something a little quicker in the close air support type role or in a target of opportunity, that might be a whole lot less feasible. But one of the other limitations with that particular weapon system is by itself, JDAM won't track a moving target. There are models of the JDAM available, like the 54, that use a laser seeker head for terminal guidance. So you can use the GPS to get close to where you need to go. And then the laser seeker there on the front end of the bomb will steer it for the final bit of distance if it sees a laser code at all. Otherwise, it'll just go to the GPS coordinates. So those you can use to hit a moving target as long as you've got somebody with a laser pointing it at your target. But you could accomplish the same thing in theory with like a GBU-12 rather than a JDAM. But it gives you the flexibility and the option, which is, especially if you're going up and doing some kind of a mission, you don't know exactly what's going on. It gives you the opportunity and the option to use laser terminal homing. A little bit of flexibility has never hurt. There we go. Got some bombs on the jet. I'm going to reset our pod here. Go back to Cat 3. Power up the JDAMs. Ripple 2. And 100-foot spacing. Thanks, Dark Hero. Appreciate the follow. Good stuff. And with that, we hit the 200 follower mark. Thank you, folks. I appreciate that. All right, so while our pod is getting warmed back up, let's go ahead and taxi on up. And we'll head back out to our waypoint and put some more playtime in. Welcome to the chat. See how our coffee situation's looking. I'm down to the bottom fifth of the cup, which means it's time for a second one here soon. It's actually a third, but who's counting? Nose wheel steering's off. Rudder's putting in the work. A little bit of a crosswind here at Creech. And upsy daisy. Stop worrying about things, Betty. We got work to do. We'll leave the 500-foot or 5,000-foot MSL floor on though, because mountains are a little higher here in Nevada, especially a little further north. Lights are out. That's good. Go get a little closer to our target area here, and then we will get to work with the marking and designating. So at the moment, come down here and look at our page. I am set for nose tail fusing on my Mark 82s. 1 second there, and there we go. We have a release setting for 2 weapons, ripple of 2, with 100-foot spacing. And they will drop as 2 impulses and singles. So it'll drop 2 bombs off the jet with 100-foot spacing apart. That's what we're currently set for. It is also in CCRP mode at the moment, which we'll change that around. We can put that in CCIP mode, which suddenly our pod is now looking in a different spot. It's looking where that pipper should be. So you can kind of use that as a quick double check for whatever it is you're trying to bomb if you manage to get the pipper over your target, and can actually spare the glance down at the MFD for that. Also CCRP, which is a continually computer release point that we talked about last week on the Saturday stream, which you can use the pod to look around and find stuff. You can also use waypoints to go that route with it, which is kind of what we'll do to do like the DTOS and the helmet designation, that kind of thing. And of course there's DTOS, which is not dive toss. That is the direct target optical sight. Kind of fills the gap in between CCIP and CCRP modes. Using DTOS is pretty simple. In DTOS mode, just as before, let's actually back up a bit. We're going to make the HUD the soy by using DMS up. It's Delta Mike Sierra up. You can see a little star in the top left corner that indicates that the HUD is currently the sensor of interest. Then we're going to do Tango Mike Sierra, TMS up, long, and that box disappears because it's now attached to the helmet mounted sight. And we're in DTOS mode. At this point, we could fly around and look at stuff. And go ahead and offset a little bit from this damn cloud. And what we will do is use the helmet to designate something to attack and go from there. Now, we know from having flown this several times over the last several weeks between the F4 and now the F-16, and, you know, because I've built this target area, because that's the way that I work on that, that somewhere out here we've got our KS-19 and S-60 battery. This would work well too as if you're looking for a SAM site or something similar. We also know that this Shoka group here has been damaged but is not defeated. So we're actually going to start with them because they're probably the most dangerous thing to us right now down in this particular zone. We'll do a TMS up short, and then we will try and refine that mark point a little bit. And, oop, oh, if we do up short again, that just moves it right to the, pause that for a second. We do TMS up short again, it just sets a new point. So now we are here, and it was hard to tell, but if I move this sensor, we'll go into the pod here in just a moment, and slew it slightly left, those Shokas will be present, and we can refine our aim point using the targeting pod. So between, we've looked at the site and went, yeah, it's really close to here. Now we're going to come back to our sensors and make a much smaller movement to locate and identify our target and then come in on it and make the attack. So let's go ahead and unpause here real quick. I'm going to do DMS down to select our pod. Put it in white hot. Actually, it's, yeah, I guess it is a little easier to see them in TV. So we'll use TV. Now I've got a precise point where those Shokas are. And if I use my helmet and look back that direction, we've got a little bug for it. So now we're going to make our attack. So again, our procedure with that, DTOS mode, make the HUD your sensor of interest. Coming up on our point here. Got the pickle button held down. I'm going to focus on this bomb release here and then we'll get back to talking. And master armor's off. I'm going to roll out, we're going to come back and do that again. Anyway, DTOS mode. Make HUD sensor of interest with DMS up. Use TMS up long to pass that sensor of interest from HUD to helmet. Look at what you want. TMS up short to designate it like you would just about anything else. And refine your aim point using another sensor. Preferably the target pod. That's going to be where you can get your best accuracy. Otherwise, you are kind of hoping for the best with, you know, the little bit of drift that the helmet sight employs. And then at that point, it's just like using CCRP mode. You're going to fly the bomb fall line. You're going to get all of your cues to tell you where things are. And unlike our first pass where the master arm wasn't on, now it is. It wasn't, because I hit the damn button again. You get all the mistakes on here too, because I do this live. I don't, you know, hide from those things, and I can own my faults. One of the things that we say around Pantheon a lot is that critique is important, both the good and the bad. There's the fire can looking at me now. I played around with them enough that they are very aware of my presence. Alright, Shokas, you've had it this time. I promise. Ripple 2. Seven seconds to impact. Alright, we'll look in TAC view later and see where those bombs fell, but they maybe went short. Oh no, those are going after a whole different site. Which, granted, that's where the KS-19 battery is, so that works too, but kind of want to kill these Shokas. Give me a little long. There, we got one more pair. Do that in CCIP mode. There we go. Bomb number 2 hit right in the middle of them. Let's go ahead and extend. We'll use our JDAMs and take out the fire can. Well, by the looks of it, we hit it with at least one pair of bombs. But there's still more angry people shooting at us. Alright. Select our GBUs. Get ourselves a little bit of altitude in standoff. And then what we'll do is generate another mark point, simulate transmitting that to our friends via the data link, and attack it with a JDAM. Trying not to fly in a straight line for too long so that the artillery down there has less of a chance of hitting me. Okay. So, step 1, let's go ahead and make another mark point. We're going to go to our ICP, hit number 7 for mark point. Make our HUD the center of interest. got the little box around it. And we're going to go ahead and go TMS up long again to make our helmet the center of interest. Push out around away from these clouds so we can actually see what's going on. That's good enough. And it is roughly down there. Refine that a little bit. So we did TMS up, short. And now we have our little box down there. We're going to go ahead and refine that. By making the pod the sensor of interest. And we could see there's our fire can setup. That's our lower things. TMS up long. We're actually going to change our mark point to TGP by hitting the dobber switch to sequence. A little TMS up short. And now I have waypoint 28, or steer point 28 rather, and we see new GPS coordinates. Now I want to be able to send this to my friends and or the people who fly with me, depending upon how you want to look at that one, I guess. It's both, really. I love the folks I fly with. So we're going to go ahead M-cell for mark point select, and you see the STPT or steer point light up in that top right hand corner. That has just made our current mark point our current steer point. I'm going to go ahead and pause again here real quick. I did this earlier, but we'll go ahead and do it again here for folks. I'm going to go to adjust controls, and the binding that we want is transmit switch IFF in, which is for IFF inboard. And you're going to long press that one. And you can see down here on the HSD, in the top right hand corner, we have XMIT TNDL. Once upon a time that said XMIT L16, but the folks at D-Link 16 got mad about that, so DCS had to change it to something more generic. But when you are holding that long press on the IFF in switch, this box lights up, and it is now transmitted this information to everybody else on your data link network. So these GPS coordinates are being sent to everybody else. On the receiving aircraft, you will have a HUD pop-up notification right in the center that you can dismiss by hitting this warning reset switch. But it will say something like MK500 or 501, 502, etc. And you will hear Betty say the word data. That means that you have received data link inputs from somebody else on the network, and it has stored that information in steer point 500 or 501, 502, etc. All of those stored steer points for those kinds of weapons and everything start at 500. At that point, what you could do is pull up your steer point, and while this box is up here, type in that number, 500, 501, 503, 515, whatever it is you got, and it will put that waypoint information up for you and slew your sensors to it. So in theory, what I've done, and in practice what I've done, is I have marked this point. I set it as my own mark point, as mark point 28, because the mark points in the F-16 start at waypoint 25 and move up. And have gone, I've got targets here that I want to kill, or are a threat, or are of interest to the rest of the flight. I have shared that information with the rest of the flight, and I can now task members of that flight to deal with the problem. At the moment, we're in single player, so I don't have anybody to task with that. But in multiplayer, that's what you can do to share that amongst your data link. Now I'm going to go ahead and use pre-plan mode here. It'll send it to any aircraft on the data link. So if you have Hornets that are on your same data link, If you've got other F-16s that are on it, I believe it might even work for the A-10C too. But anybody who is on that data link network, they should be receiving that information, provided the aircraft is able to interpret it. Okay, by the looks of it, we're already in good parameters for our bomb. Let's kill this fire can. Pickle. We'll go back to watching the bomb here in a minute. I do like slim pickencing my way down with those things sometimes. Especially when I'm doing this, I like to see where they go. Let's leave ourselves in an attitude hold. Mr. JDAM is flying on its path. You can use mark points as well to rapidly engage targets with JDAMs, because unlike the F-15, there we go, that killed the S-60 battery and the fire can itself. Unlike the F-15, where you can designate ahead of time targets for every single bomb on the jet, the F-16 doesn't have that capability per se, but you can use the mark point system to generate 4 mark points in a row. And using pre-plan mode, just go steer point 28, release, steer point 29, release, steer point 30, release, steer point 31, release, and get through it very quickly. Not quite as quick as the F-15, obviously, with, you know, I just marked up 12 bombs for release, and I'm going to send all of them here on this single pull-up. But you can get close. Our pod is still a little bit masked, but if we come down here and take a peek, there's a cloud. Yep, there is the dead S-60 battery that was on the forward end of those bombs. And they're not showing up in thermals, but they might show up in TV. Yeah, there we go. KS-19 battery. And you know, that might still be alive. So we'll just go ahead and mark it up. I will admit that the F-15E is very much my first home in terms of what I like to fly in DCS. Some of that's for personal reasons too. You've caught up with any of the streams and things that I've done in the past. I'm actually from the area that we're flying here and grew up on Nellis. So I got to, in the days prior to 9/11, get to occasionally take a school field trip or something out to the flight line and visit with folks and see the planes up close. And the Strike Eagle has definitely always been one that's been pickle, very near and dear to the heart. It's just unfortunate with the current state that RASBAM and ED are slinging mud at one another that it hasn't received any updates in almost a year. So there are some issues like with the multi-crew desync for slotting your JDAMs and aligning them and everything else. It doesn't always translate those information between both seats like it should. There are weapons that are missing from the aircraft still, like the GBU-15 or the AGM-130, which is just a GBU-15 with a rocket motor attached. Its data link pod is kind of useless at the moment, as it doesn't have any weapons to work with, like the aforementioned GBU-15. So it's unfortunate, but it is still a strike powerhouse and can still do a lot of work, and it has hands down the best air-to-ground mapping radar in the game. I have worked and flown, and Chief, who's probably still watching here on the server, could tell you, in 0-0 environments with it, used nothing but the radar to map out a target area and successfully engage it and any of the SAM sites that were associated with our target. A very, very beautiful machine. Alright, so that one's dead. What else have we got? We got a little BMP there. Let's give him the TMS up. Briefly point the nose at him as we get into parameters. And send it. And we've also got a house right here that's standing out as very much a DCS, this is built sort of thing. We'll attack it too. I really do hope that they work their issues out quickly so that Razbam can get back on the horse with taking care of business. Go, a couple of shacks there. With that, we were out of bombs. Now, the important thing to note is that any of the weapons that we've used today and delivery modes and acquisition modes that we've used are kind of universal amongst similar types of weapons. Any of the smart weapons, the JSOW, JDAM, CPU 105, CPU 103, anything like that that is GPS guided, the techniques that we've employed with the JDAMs today work with them. They're less intelligent, less wind-corrected cousins, like the CBU 87 for the CBU 103, or the 97 for the 105. They can be used in the same way as the iron bombs that we've used. You can designate those things that way and make that work. There are some inaccuracies with the system, as we saw today, where some of our bombs went a little bit long. And sometimes you just have to correct for that on your own as the pilot, especially as you've been flying for a while and alignment systems drift. Mavericks, it should work as well. They have a visual mode, so DTOS will work with them too, where you can set an area and look here and say, I want your seeker head to be pointing this direction as long as you could see it, and make that work. I think force correlation and all of that is going to be my focus for next week, employing the Mavericks on that, and a little bit of nighttime flying. But Viz mode on any of the available weapons that have it will work largely the same way. The big thing to understand about the Maverick is its seeker head is not as robust, shall we say, as either your helmet or the targeting pod, where you're not going to be able to slew it 90 degrees off to the left or right. But if you are out and about and looking in like the front third of the aircraft and go, hey, I think there's a tank column or something here, you can mark that up just like we did, and at least get the Maverick largely pointing in the right direction, and then just refine it and shoot it. And ad break coming up here as we're coming into land. Should be up here in the next 45 seconds or so. At least that's what Twitch is telling me. But we'll come in and we'll land here, and then we'll see where we are from there. I could make one more pass with Mavericks. In fact, we'll do that for you since you're here on the stream. And as with our first landing, we'll come in and make the overhead brake at Creech.
Altitude. Altitude.
Okay, coming in over the airfield. Very similar to a Case 1 landing on a carrier. Coming into the brake. Monitoring our throttle.
Warning, 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 warning.
Gears down and locked. I think we'll actually talk about one more feature of the HSD and the helmet as well. Once we take off again. Okay, 3-degree markers out where it needs to be. On AOA. And nice gentle kiss of the wheels. Keep the nose up for as long as we can. Aero brake. And when she falls down naturally, hold full aft stick, apply brake pressure. Pull the boards in and taxi off. Now we'll pull up and stop here for a minute. Get ourselves some gas. Grab ourselves some Mavericks. I guess we can carry Mark 82s up.
Request refueling. Request rearming. Copy.
Appreciate the follow there, Catsman dude. Shouldn't take us too long to get that all sorted and situated.
Refueling complete.
Yep. It doesn't have power, so we'll go ahead and get that going again.
Rearming complete.
First things first, make sure you're powering up the actual AGM-65s. They do take a few minutes to get themselves warmed up, and therefore useful. Going to taxi on up. We'll head back to our point. Because we still got some more pieces of armor that we could shoot at, so we'll go do that. Alright. Oopsie daisy.
Altitude.
Here's coming up. As bright as those will go. Takes about 3 minutes to warm up a Maverick. So that is a weapon system that you kind of want to think about early in advance. But it is now up. I think my TGP needs another reset. Okay, let's actually show off one of the other features here. Of the HSD, and we'll just turn 040 for a moment. We have this target way out here that we could see with the radar. We can, using the HSD, take anything that we could see on the display, like other friendly aircraft, and TMS up on it. And from that point, as long as somebody's got it, sensors on it, we will have a dotted line telling us where that thing is. So you can use that with any friendly or hostile aircraft. If you try and bug a hostile aircraft with it, your updates are going to be subject to a little bit of a refresh rate, so it's not perfect in terms of showing exactly where the enemy is. But if you use it on another aircraft that is transmitting on Link 16, like an allied flight member, the update should be fairly close to live. So what you'll see is a little line that comes off the top, as if you were looking for a waypoint, but it'll be a dotted line, and you'll see a circle with whatever their data link contact number is on the display, so you can have a visual image of them wherever you go. It'll put a little circle around them to say, hey, this is the target you're tracking. This is where he's at. You can try and keep track of your flight members that way. Okay, so let's go ahead and try and use this in the visual mode, designating with the helmet as we get closer to our site. We're still a fair distance away, about 16 miles or so, so we're very close to a range we can acquire. But we are in visual mode, as indicated by VIS, and at the moment the HUD is listed as soy. We're going to go ahead and TMS up long to pass that to the helmet. And you can see that the Maverick Seeker head is in fact following as best it can my helmet display. It's hard when I'm using the Track IR to move it far enough that you can still see what it's looking at. But we can basically do what we do with everything else. We will designate and refine, and I know that there's some armor right about there. So now it is trying to hold roughly that point. We're going to go ahead and make it the soy. And we will refine our aim point and rifle. Again, a lot of the designating with the helmet, you're kind of subject to whatever the weapon system itself can see and its field of view limitations. But with this, we've just been able to go, there's a building with a tank next to it, and we hit the building. But we were able to rapidly acquire that site. Same thing, just going to go ahead and set it up to TMS up long. Now I'm looking with the helmet. I want that area. Now I'm way too close to try and acquire something with the Maverick, so we're just going to extend for a minute. Kind of out here to the north. The Seeker head is trying, it's at its gimbal limit right now. And as we come back into parameters, it is somewhat close to where we had it. Let's go ahead and make it the sensor of interest. Refine our aim point. Rifle. Tagged our truck. Let's actually look down there. We've got a couple of MTLBs that are in that general area. Let's go ahead and get that area queued up. Queued up to kill. So we have the HUD as the sensor of interest. TMS up long to make it the helmet. That area there is about what we need. Turn in for it. Weapon. Refine. Designate. Get way out of the way of the Shoka.
Altitude. Pull up. Pull up.
Since that Shoka has decided to rear its ugly head. I'm using TMS down as well to get that box back on the HUD in the center prior to doing TMS up long to make it the the helmet to redesignate. Since we know that apparently there's at least one group of Shokas down there, or one Shoka that's still up, despite everything we've done to them. Let's go ahead and get in there. Refine that aim point. Looks like him. Rifle. Immediately turn away so we can hopefully not get shot. Oh god, we'll finish that side off with more CCIP bombs. Fun part with the CCIP Pipper is that if it's got that bar on it, you can pretty much put this thing... Oh, they spread out a little bit. That's what they did. Might have attacked an already dead one. And put it kind of wherever you want. Press and hold the pickle button, and then the bombs will fall off the plane where they are a little more like a CCRP type release. Less precise. Like your most precise is going to be waiting on that bar to fall all the way into the basket, so that your pipper's over the target and you get that immediate release out of him. And like all the other dumb weapons, if you are putting flight control inputs in at the moment of release, it will miss.
Altitude.
Those kind of look like good hits. Yep, he's damaged, but that potentially isn't. Got one more pair of bombs. Let's try and make these count. So that's kind of a general rule of thumb with just about any dumb bomb, is you really want to deaden your control inputs at the moments of release. He's damaged enough that he's not looking at us anymore. With that, let's go ahead and change our tack in back to 12 X-ray. Get a little bit of altitude here. And we'll cruise back to Nellis where we all started. But yes, Master Naurior, the Mavericks, anything with a Viz mode, you can use the helmet to designate the general area that you want to look and really make for a much faster acquisition of your target. Just like with anything else, you are going to have to refine your aim point. That's just a thing. But it will get you close. And getting close and having to do just a little bit of movement with the targeting pod in a way that probably makes more sense to identify where your area is far and away quicker than fumbling about in the dark with it, trying to put the square over the top of the other target while you're in the middle of a turn or evasive maneuvers or anything along those lines. Kind of burning fuel here as we get home. And breaking some windows. For the F-16 in the specific, that is coming up here soon. I think that's going to be 2 weeks from now. But that'll also cover the helmet-mounted system and the AIM-9X, which is a lot of fun because you can put it in bore sight mode, look around somewhere, and go TMS up. Actually, I need the radar on here first. Let's go into dogfight. Radar's on. I've got the Signwinder Seeker head up, but I want to acquire something with the radar, so I do TMS up again. That puts a circle. And you just put that over the top of the target, it'll lock it up, and then you can uncage the missile and shoot.
Bingo. Bingo.
Yes, thank you, Betty. Dogfight mode is really handy because if you are in air to ground, like I'm up here bombing stuff, yeah. Alright, I'm in air to ground, I'm bombing stuff, I can go immediately to dogfight mode. And put the work in. And then come out of it, and I'm ready to bomb again. A lot of power in these systems. Now we're down to about 1,300 pounds, and we are right over Nellis. Go ahead and begin our descent. Yeah, 9X will really make up for a lot of bad habits. That's for sure. At the 9M, you got a lot of power in that too. That should be I-15 there, and Craig Road there. Into the Air Force Base.
Altitude. Altitude.
Big things in air-to-air is keeping your eyes on your target, using the sensors when you have to. Definitely in a dogfight, using your actual eyes for it. Your sensors are never going to be quicker. They can help you out a lot, but you got to get most of the distance there. And energy management are the big hallmarks of that. Got to have the power to make those turns, and you have to know when you can make them and when you can't. But those are all things we'll cover in a couple of weeks. It'll be a good time. I'm still there now. I love this city. I've traveled to many other places, and I'm still baffled by the fact that there are some places that just shut down after 5. Certainly grown a lot in 40 years, too. All right, let's go ahead and turn in for home. A little quick, but we should be on speed here as we get to the runway. And a little kiss. Keep the nose up. Use that wing for the brake. Nose gear naturally settles. And back under control. Port's coming in, nose wheel steering's on. Go ahead and taxi to the end of 03 left here. Swing around to that hangar. Here's the end of our runway. It'd be nice once they put the newer lighting engine on this map too, and give it a little bit of a facelift. More of a DCS historical fact there for it for the day, but the NTTR was really the first map after Caucasus that they put downrange, and was only available because back then you had DCS 1.5X, which was what everybody would fly on together, multiplayer on Caucasus, and then 2.6, which was NTTR. Welcome back. So it unfortunately has not received the same new engine love that Persian Gulf, Syria, Kola, any of the other maps since have really had as an enhancement. I hope you had a good time while you were in town. Certainly a mild December for us. And this ought to work here. We'll take this turn in. A lot to see and do here, not just the things on the strip too. There's a lot of good museums in town. The Atomic Testing Museum, kind of out in Henderson, is a good place to visit. Always recommend that one. Natural history museums are solid. A lot of the mob museum ones too, and certainly the forum shops and places like that, all good places to visit. Alright, the parking brake is on. We have arrived back in the home of the Thunderbirds. Go ahead and lift this on up. And we'll cold and dark the aircraft and close things out here for today. Okay, well, that's been pretty much our lesson here for today with DTOS and some of the things about the helmet and employing some of the smart weapons. We made use of the JSOW early on in the stream and added onto that one some of the GPS guided weapons with JDAM. We took the Mavericks up to use them in visual mode, made use of the helmet sight for designated targets, simulated transmitting that information to other elements in our data link group, which can include more aircraft than just the F-16s, which is always kind of nice. Really kind of a good time with that. With that, we'll just go ahead and move on to our closing credits here, which will say all of our usual things. I appreciate all of the follows, all the likes, all the subscribes. We crossed the 200 follower mark today, which is incredible. I'm really glad about that. That is one of the goals that I had to push up and try and reach. Yeah, this will make it onto the YouTube later. I've actually got a few of these I need to upload to YouTube, so I should probably get that rolling off today. Also, welcome to the channel, Catsman Dude. Good time. But again, on display there we have all of our usual upcoming events. You can donate either directly to Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you get a free Twitch subscription of your choice. If you choose to spend that here, that's great. You don't have to. But it does cut down on the ads too, so there's that. If you prefer to tip more directly, you can do that too at coffee.com/PilumJRMR. None of that is required. If you guys do that, I appreciate it, very much so, but it's not required. You don't have to. You can catch this and other VODs on the YouTube channel at @PilumRamar. This will be uploaded there somewhat shortly, I hope. It should display it here for too long. I'll get that started today. This was Saturday, which was Pilum Teaches DCS. That starts at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Monday is our next stream up. We're going to be doing DCS Monday again. That's mostly less teaching, more having fun, usually playing on the Pantheon Initiative public servers and things like that are up, which I encourage folks to fly on anytime you're up. And you might run into me on SRS while we're there. It could be a good time. Servers might be a little fluctuating here in the next day or two as the server host is physically moving a little bit here in town. I'll be helping him out on Sunday to do that, so good times for that. But if you see him, more than welcome to come up. Also, in addition, on Monday, we have the classic game stream. We're going to be finishing up Castlevania 2, which should be a good time. And then Friday night, we've got Arma 3 at 6 p.m. Pacific. Going to be carrying on with some of our Anastasi campaign on that. And then Saturday, we're back for Pilum Teaches DCS. We'll be carrying on with the F-16 and focusing on things like force correlation. And I think I'll try and sneak some air-to-air in there, too, which should be a good time. As always, folks, always ask for consent. Try to communicate as best you can with your partners. Try to be genuinely decent human beings. And I will catch up with you later on. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a good day.